everybody wants to talk about the Knicks right now. And really, because the Knicks are contender status, I feel like they're trying to find other things to talk about. We're going to get into why things are spoken about in the first place. But really, the conversation had to start with updates on Julius Randle and that contract extension with the Knicks. Now, as you know, Howard, with Julius Randle, he was eligible for a contract extension with the Knicks starting August 1st. I believe it's 4 years, $181 million. And according to Bobby Marks, the market plays a huge role in terms of what determines a player's salary. He's a player that's had a surgery the last 2 years, with the most recent one being a serious shoulder injury that cost him the year since January. And when talking about free agency, Bobby Marks put it out there stating, who is New York competing against out there in the offseason? Is Brooklyn willing to spend $40 million on Randle? Are the Wizards or other teams going to do that? It's just not there. It's either going to be New York on an extension, a new contract, or maybe he goes a Josh Hart route where he goes into the deal before October 31st and extends off of that. Basically stating, though, Randle likely is going to extend. So the question really was if it's not really if, it's when he's going to extend, but not really sure when it's going to happen. It's a multifaceted question here. Before I get to each and every part, let me get to the first part for you. Do you think that Julius Randle will sign that extension with New York based on everything that you're hearing?
I don't have a prediction for you there that I could make confidently. My gut tells me that they'll figure something out, that it's to everybody's benefit to kind of get this done and put away, because you don't want it hanging over, right? This is part of the dynamics in the NBA. Like, you could say about, like, we could discuss it through the lens of, like, what's a guy worth? How much do you think you should spend on him, just payroll wise? How much room do you have? All this stuff, right? What does he bring to the table? Sometimes it's just a matter of, like, just, human psychology. Like, if he wants to be rewarded, right? He's been all NBA twice. He has been a critical part of this era, the best era they've had in 20 something years. And he should be rewarded for that. And if you're Julius Randle or his agent and his family and everybody else, that's, hey, look, max me out. What's the hesitation? But the NBA is in a different place right now in terms of the economics, the new CBA, the second apron, all these complications. And so it's not that straightforward for the Knicks. And the factors that Bobby Marks outlined are the right ones, of course, to look at, because there's a market here. And if you're the Knicks, it's delicate, right? You don't want to go to Julius Randle and his representation and say, listen, who else you could sign? Like, you don't say it. Bobby Marks could say that. You and I could say that. You can't say that in a negotiation. You're not saying, like, oh, hey, it's us or nothing. Where are you going to go? The Nets and the Wizards aren't signing you. And I think that Bobby's right on all of that, of course. So it's delicate, because you don't want to go into the season with one of your best players feeling, been out of shape. You want him to feel part of this. You want him to feel invested. He probably already, like, it would just be, this is just me talking, like, but it would be shocking if he didn't feel a little bit already about, well, listen, they've just brought in another guy who's, an offensive go-to guy in some respects, and Mikal Bridges, different kind of player, but still, they've brought another guy. They've got all these other players who emerged last season who have become stars of various levels. OG Anunoby just got a massive contract after they acquired him, and they had a certain run of success while Julius was hurt. So you're probably already feeling like just a little bit of insecurity. And so, again, the psychology of this is important. I don't think you want that hanging over. So if they can find a way to get something done, maybe it's a shorter extension, maybe it's max number, but shorter years. Maybe it's below the max, but longer. I don't know. Maybe they find some kind of compromise just to show, look, we want you, we value you, and we want him to feel good about things going into the season, so that you don't have it hanging over. But it's also not going to shock me if nothing gets done at all, because I do think Julius Randle, in a vacuum, of course he should want and has earned a full max extension. And I don't know that it's wise for the Knicks to do it. I also don't think I'm not sure it's feasible, right? We don't need to get into all the mechanics of the salary cap and second aprons and everything, but they've got 4 players making 20 plus million a year, or 20 plus million just this season. Next season, they'll have 3 guys making at least 30 or more million for a single year. And and Bridges is also eligible for an extension, and you just gave up like a shit ton of draft picks. So
Right.
like you didn't trade all that stuff for Mikal Bridges just to like have him expire in a couple of years. Like, and he's eligible for an extension too. You can't pay everyone in different other eras of the NBA, different CBAs. Maybe you can afford to just keep spending. This CBA is designed to prevent, especially a team like the Knicks with all the resources they have, from just spending to the hilt. Um, they can, like it's possible. There is still is not literally a hard cap, but there are consequences for being over that second apron.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the Knicks want to do that. If they extend Julius at the max, maybe they're saying screw it. Let's just take the consequences.
Right. And the thing is, everything's pointing to the fact that they're not going to sign that extension. You would figure with Jalen Brunson doing what he did, right, giving the Knicks this massive discount, all this flexibility, just thinking about how they would use it, just filling in the use of it with Julius Randle's contract right now doesn't seem like it would make sense. And even for Randle, just thinking about it outside the box here, if I'm him and I'm thinking to myself, in order for me to get the most money, I got to show not number one, I'm back, I can do it, and I can prove it where it matters the most in the postseason. I think if I did that, it'd probably maximize the amount of money that I would get. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think that there's a good case to be made for the wait and see approach on both sides, right? Julius, show you're healthy. The Knicks are, I think, certainly going to want to see too just how this team fits together now. Like, Randle and OG were not together for very long before before the injuries hit. Bridges is brand new to the team. The team just evolved over the course of last season. And now obviously, like we'll get to the center issues, but Hartenstein is gone. And so even though the core of this team is back and you could feel very comfortable about what their identity is, there are still some things to work out. What is the pecking order now in the offense with Brunson and Randle and Bridges and Anunoby, who's going to want, he's not a go-to offensive player necessarily, but well, first of all, every NBA player thinks they're a go-to offensive player, but Anunoby's going to want to get his too.
Yeah.
So, Tibbs has his work cut out for him in terms of figuring out the rotation, making sure that everybody feels good about their role. We know that Randle has chafed in the past sometimes about role and shots and everything. So I think there's a good case to be made that if you can't figure out terms on an extension, can't come to terms, play it out. See how all these pieces fit together. See if you really do think that Randle is a long-term piece. Maybe he's not. Maybe you decide that you should flip him for a more reliable center, given all of Mitchell Robinson's health concerns over the years and given the loss of Hartenstein. So I could see a playing it out scenario. Randle does have that $31 million option for next season.
Mm-hmm.
It's, if you take it as Bobby Marks laid it out, if you take it as a given that it's unlikely that anybody's going to scoop him up in free agency or max him out next summer, and that's an inducement for Randle to just opt in, then you've got time as the Knicks to figure this out.
What do you think about the fit with Julius Randle? That's been the next biggest question, because now you have all these pieces. You have all the things that matter that could take you to the championship. Do you think Randle's fit is something to be questioned? Because he did mention on offense, potentially maybe there is a question of where he could be in that pecking order.
I mean, it's interesting because I think at the time that Brunson arrived, Randle was the clear like number one option in some ways, right? Like this is the most skilled and accomplished offensive player you've got. And then Jalen Brunson turned into like an MVP candidate. So there's that aspect of it. There's the bringing in Mikal Bridges part of it. There's the fact that Dante DiVincenzo just had a career season. You have so many different ways you can go with the offense now that when you ask about what's the fit, I think it's unknown. I like literally we have not seen any extensive version we haven't seen any version with Bridges in it, but if we assume that the starting five is Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby, Randle, Mitchell Robinson, that unit hasn't even played together yet. So how do the shots get divided up? How much opportunity does Randle get to cook? We know he likes to hold the ball a little bit too long sometimes. How much is Bridges? I'm curious to see how much Bridges is playing as purely with the starting unit versus I've thrown this out there, and it's a bad analogy, or not a just not a perfect analogy. But I've wondered if Bridges could serve a little bit as like the Andre Iguodala with the Warriors role, where you're running the second unit. Like Bridges can play that role. You don't want him to be your primary playmaker, your offensive hub full time. We saw in Brooklyn that's not really the best use of him. Right. He's better as your second, third option, but he has ball handling and shot creation skills. There are things he can do, and I wonder if part of the way you resolve the just pure distribution of field goal attempts is that maybe Bridges comes out early, returns with the second unit.
Yes.
I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, Tibbs is much better at this than I am, so I'm sure he'll figure it out. But I do think those are things they do have to figure out.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that DiVincenzo is still getting X number of minutes and shots, because he had a breakout season and he was fantastic. It's they are one of the deepest teams in the league now, which is to their credit, but is, of course, that can pose challenges too. And so when you ask about Randle's fit, I think all of those things come into play.
One of the things that we're talking about as well too, right? We're talking about Julius Randle, his fit, which is great and all, and we could talk about that. And I think that over the course of the season, I think he'll make it work. If January was any indication, I know it was a very small sample size, it looked like he was playing within the flow of the offense, not forcing anything. If he can continue that and not really care if he's a number one some nights, number two some nights, and number three some nights, I think the Knicks are going to thrive. It's all about, like you said, the mentality, how you approach, that part of the game.
If you enjoyed these clips from the live show, be sure to subscribe to the channel and have notifications turned on so you don't miss any new episodes or when we go live. Thanks for watching, Knicks fans, and until next time, peace.